This season has been filled to the brim with trades and reports regarding the Toronto Raptors, but one of the crazier names has just been linked to Toronto, and Killian Hayes, as apparently Toronto is a favorite to land the Detroit Pistons guard, which confuses the heck out of me. So we're going to discuss that, including the latest Woj update regarding Bruce Brown, and Fred VanVleet speaking out on his time with the Toronto Raptors, and how things kind of fell apart last season. So lots of stuff to dive into, but before we dive into that, folks, again, over 58% of our viewers are not subscribed to the channel, so it would mean the world to me if you guys could hit that subscribe button so we can keep you up to date with all of the latest Toronto Raptors news. But let's dive in all of these reports. So the first thing we're taking a look at is a wild update that links Killian Hayes to the Toronto Raptors. Now, this one is not something I'd expected to be covering today. Some news that has sort of dropped because Killian Hayes is a guy that, again, a young guard that had a lot of potential, coming into the league, a lottery pick for the Detroit Pistons. Development probably got halted a little bit as the Pistons really struggled to develop a lot of talented players. Cade's been solid. They have Duran that there is pretty good. We'll see how the Thompson twin as well as Jaden Ivey end up producing. But Killian Hayes is a guy that seems to be, I want to say, a failed development project, but a guy that hasn't panned out as Pistons fans were hoping. And there's some speculation that a trade might go down now for the Detroit Pistons, given the emergence of Jaden Ivey and how Monty Williams just loves playing Killian Hayes over their other guards here now at this point. Now, his minutes have regressed, his minutes have dropped in recent games, and now a report has come out basically revealing the odds in terms of frontrunners to land Killian Hayes in a trade, and the Spurs are favored, but just behind the San Antonio Spurs with nearly close to the same odds as the Toronto Raptors. And came across this and frankly was shocked because why on earth would the Toronto Raptors be interested in Killian Hayes? He's a guy that, sure, age and timeline fits this sort of new Toronto Raptors group perfectly. Only 22 years old and stuff, but averaging 7 points per game, 5 assists, so a solid, facilitator and stuff, but can't shoot the basketball, so you have that issue in floor spacing, and it's just a guy that hasn't really taken the leaps that, fans of him have been hoping for, and, you saw it last season. It looked like he may have been taking a jump, particularly at the second half of last season. Cade dealt with some injuries and stuff, averaged 10, 6, and 3, but this year, he's been given a lot of minutes, especially at the start of this year. And with Jaden Ivey also on the team, Monty Williams, despite getting being one of the highest paid coaches in NBA history, was taking a lot of flack for playing Killian Hayes over Ivey, and those things have had to change after, the immense amount of losing the Pistons have been doing so far this year. But Killian Hayes is a guy that does have potentials of playmaker. I mean, I've been trying to learn French, so I follow a bunch of French basketball pages to try to improve my French. And, NBA Paris or NBA France, whatever these Instagram pages are, they love Killian Hayes and see him as a potential next star out there in the league. But, he's a guy that, again, can't really shoot. It's his biggest sort of gripe at a guard in the NBA. It's really tough to sort of see, even from the corners, only shooting 38% from the corners and 24% from the corner threes last season, which is a brutal sort of number there, shooting the basketball. And as a guard, you're looking for guys that can potentially score, get some buckets and stuff. Over 85%, or at least 85 on the button in terms of his shots, are assisted upon from teammates. So he's not really creating a lot for you. He's not able to space the floor. He can create for others. He can assist for others. He's a fast, athletic guard, but the potential's there, with athleticism frame, and he's still only a young guy, but on a team where there are question marks about the shooting, long-term shooting of RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes have improved immensely this season, but we want floor spacing, especially at that guard position. Now, maybe as a backup, he's a guy you could take a flyer on, trade away one of our vets to bring in a young guy with potential, maybe some draft capital from the Detroit Pistons, but I'm not super sold on Killian Hayes. Let me know if you guys are. Again, he's a guy that, could be cool for this team, but we'll see. Next thing we're taking a look at is a Woj Bruce Brown update. Now, we've heard a lot of updates regarding Bruce Brown. I'm not going to dwell on this because it seems like similar information that has been sort of discussed in recent weeks, because there's two teams that have really become front runners for a Bruce Brown here now at this point. And basically, you look at the third paragraph in terms of ththese updates from Adrian Wojnarowski. Bruce Brown has been mentioned as a trade target for both the Los Angeles Lakers, the Knicks, and other contenders also want Bruce Brown. Woj kind of said this as well in a recent Threads update, responding to one of those Ask Me Anything Wednesdays or Woj Wednesdays, whatever he does over there on Instagram, Threads, or whatever the heck that platform is called. So, again, Teams are still interested. More and more contenders want Bruce Brown as the days go along, and we're hearing similar reports. They aren't fizzling out, and I'd still expect Woj to be right, and people Bruce Brown to end up getting traded, and a Woj bomb potentially incoming. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But the last thing we're discussing is Fred VanVleet speaking out on the Toronto Raptors. Now, obviously, longtime Toronto Raptor Fred VanVleet, a guy that I'm a fan of. I know you guys roasted the heck out of me last season for supporting this dude, even though he was inefficient and all these types of things. Fred VanVleet is a Raptors legend. He's a guy that won a championship here. Amazing story coming as an undrafted guy into the league. Love me some Fred VanVleet. And he had some comments about his departure from the Toronto Raptors last year. It's interesting stuff. One of them has been the one that's getting taken in by the Fred VanVleet haters, basically, using this against him, saying, I don't think I bonded as well as I would have liked with some of the group in general. It was kind of like everybody was on the same playing field and we all were striving for our own different things. Sometimes timelines don't match and sometimes interests don't match. And this is something that was clear to see as a Toronto Raptors fan out there, watching these games night in, night out. There was some disconnect between players in the front, players on this team, the vets, the younger guys, whatever it was, whatever the interests were, they weren't aligned. And obviously, people are pointing to Fred VanVleet making $40 million per year now and saying, he was just interested in salaries, interested for himself, while the rest of the team wanted to win. I think that's the wrong take. I think, different stages in careers, Masai Ujiri, again, Fred also alluded to this in some of his comments with his interview with Michael Grange, but alluded to there were some development sort of inklings going on there from Masai Ujiri getting a little bit younger. The two timelines, we saw it not work out for the Golden State Warriors, and it definitely, I don't want to say it didn't work out for the Toronto Raptors, but didn't let us win and, develop guys that well. So, we ended up getting some good value for OG for Pascal Siakam, but that two timelines thing definitely didn't really work that well for the Toronto Raptors either. And he also had some comments about being a Toronto Raptor forever, and he said, I got to closely monitor Kyle Lowry through change and closely monitor DeMar DeRozan. Obviously, those are two of my closest friends. Seeing those guys move on, you say, okay, it's possible. Like, if we can trade DeMar, who the heck am I? If Kyle got to the point where it's time for him to go, he's the best Toronto Raptor of all time. Who the heck am I? You have to be realistic with yourself. I always dream of a player to stay with one team his whole career, but it's going to get less and less realistic these days. And that makes a lot of sense in terms of Fred VanVleet. Obviously, the Toronto Raptors weren't able to match those salary sort of yearly annual basis salary that the Houston Rockets were offering up to him. So he had to walk, and Fred VanVleet is right to sort of take that type of money. It's no blaming him there. Things weren't really working out. The Raptors went in a development system, development path. Fred VanVleet's trying to, I guess, win now. The Rockets are still a developing team, but probably further along in their rebuild with multiple sort of top draft selections. Şengün there, right? Then the Raptors were sort of at that point. So it worked out for both sides, the Toronto Raptors and Fred VanVleet. Again, excited to see him play tonight against the Toronto Raptors for his new Houston Rockets squad. But let me know what you guys think. Let's cheer on Freddie VanVleet if you're in the stadium there for let's not boo him. That would be a bad look, Raptors fans. I think this game is in Toronto as well, but it's his first game against the Toronto Raptors here now at this point. But let me know what you guys think about all this Toronto Raptors news. You guys are best to make this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.